Welcome back to Sports Day. I'm Tom Wilson. Well, Andy Ruiz stunned the sporting world at the weekend with a huge upset win over Anthony Joshua, while Aussie champ Tim Tszyu has jumped in the ring with one of the best. For the latest, we're joined by boxing commentator Paul Upham. Welcome, Paul. Promoter Eddie Hearn is pushing for a rematch with Ruiz. What can you tell us on that one?
Well, it's actually going to happen. There's a contracted rematch clause and they've elected to take that up. Anthony Joshua said straight away, hey, I want the fight straight away. He doesn't want an interim bout. He wants to get straight back in the ring. So it will happen in November, most likely. They're talking about the UK. It is possible it may go back to Madison Square Garden, America, but it is certainly going to happen. Andy Ruiz will not have an interim fight. The new world champion will be defending his title against Anthony Joshua, and Joshua has said he's determined to get those belts. He said Andy should enjoy them now because they're coming back to him.
Yeah, well, I know Andy said that he was going to win the belts, and I think we're all very surprised that he was that confident before the fight. It's one of the biggest upsets in sporting history. What went wrong for Joshua?
Look, I think it was a number of things. You can't just put it onto one particular aspect. He was a short notice fighter. He took this fight on 6 weeks' notice. The actual opponent pulled out beforehand. He was convicted of some steroid use. So that I think that Anthony Joshua, being the star, he was going to America for the first time, and the great Costa Tszyu always told me, he said, Paul, everyone underestimates how hard it is to fight away from home. There's so many more advantages fighting at home, and Joshua was fighting in America for the first time. Obviously, he's a huge star in the UK, and all those little things make a difference when you're at home as opposed to being on the road overseas. And he really wanted to make a big impact in America and claim to be the true heavyweight champion. Of course, the American Deontay Wilder, who has the WBC belt, he says he's the true world champion. So here was Joshua's chance to go into America and to make a big impact. So there's a lot of pressure on him. He's still a novice, even though he's only had 21 fights. There's a lot of things he hasn't done in his boxing career, and one of these things is being in a real slugfest, getting hurt, coming back. And in that round 3, when he was hurt, I think he was hit behind the ear with a hook from Ruiz, and it took out his equilibrium, and he was just never the same. And a lot of people said it didn't look like Anthony Joshua. Well, that's because what Ruiz was doing in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely right. You touched on the other fighters there and the US audience. As a whole, how do you think the US will view this loss?
Look, I think they're going to be very critical of Joshua. People are writing him off already. They said he's not going to win the rematch, how disappointing he was. The other two names out there are Deontay Wilder, who I mentioned, and Tyson Fury, the other UK fighter, the lineal heavyweight champion. Fury was a bit more supportive, saying that Joshua will come back. Wilder and Fury fought, we saw last year in that thrilling fight in Los Angeles, and they've announced they're going to have a rematch. So you had a case of 3 guys all claiming to be the real heavyweight champion, and this was a perfect case for Joshua to go to America and to say that I'm the true king. But unfortunately, he's lost. Now he's got to deal with business with Ruiz, and who knows, if Ruiz wins again and beats Joshua, that could be the end for Anthony Joshua as an elite fighter at heavyweight.
Now that's what they're saying. What are you saying? Do you think he'll regain his belts?
Look, there's been plenty of champions who've come back and avenged a loss. Lennox Lewis did it. Hasim Rockman, when he got knocked out. The great Evander Holyfield, he lost to Riddick Bowe, and he came back and avenged that loss in the next fight. So plenty of guys have done it. Muhammad Ali with Leon Spinks. That's the true test. It's not that you lose, it's what you do after you lose. Can he come back and be a better fighter? And this is the wake-up call for Anthony Joshua. What does he need to do better? He's got to look at his training camp. He went and trained in Miami. Was that a good idea? Should he be back home in the UK? There's a lot of things he needs to look at. He's got great skills and great talent, and physically he's just enormous. He's got all the skills to be a heavyweight champion, but what has he got to do different? And mentally, how does he handle a loss? How is he going to face up to fighting Ruiz again? These are the questions that need to be answered, and this is what we like about boxing, because you don't know for sure which Joshua is going to come in the ring when they fight again in November.
So there's no possibility that they'll fight anyone else? It's a guarantee that they'll fight in November?
At this elite level, they have these extensive contracts, and there was a guaranteed rematch clause, an option in Joshua's favour. So if he did lose, it's his option, and Ruiz has to fight him. He announced overnight that he's electing to have that option engaged contractually. The only question is now, where do they have the fight? American television will want to have the fight in the USA. If I'm Anthony Joshua, I want to be back home in front of my home fans in the UK. That may cost him a little bit of money, he may have to give up. But ultimately, I think Anthony Joshua needs to do what's best for him, and to get that home ground advantage, to take Ruiz over the UK, that's certainly something he wants to do. But whether he can do that money-wise and with the television networks, that's something that has to be negotiated and have to work out where the site's going to be. So there's a lot of things to be worked out, but it's going to happen. It'll be probably in November, Ruiz, Joshua too, and I can't wait as a boxing fan, because these are the sort of things that you want to see in boxing. Sometimes you get these boring fights. You watch that fight last week on a main event, it's one you'll never forget.
Yeah, certainly agree with that. How about Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? Fury wants another crack. Will that happen?
Yeah, they announced this week that they're going to have a rematch early next year. They haven't set a site or a date yet, but it'll probably be the first quarter of next year. But they're both having interim fights. Tyson Fury is going to fight in 2 weeks' time against an undefeated German, Schwarzer, in Las Vegas on June 15. And Deontay Wilder is going to have a rematch with Ortiz, a fighter he's fought before. So there's always a risk. Anytime you get in the ring, you can lose. So even though they're saying we're going to have a rematch early next year, both of them are going to get through interim fights, and that'll be interesting to see how they go. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to build the fight. They're trying to build that expectation. And after Joshua's loss, the two of them can now claim to be the true heavyweight champions, and the winner will be the undisputed champion. But we have to wait and see. They've got to get in the ring first.